podcast. My name is Dr. DC, and joining me sitting next to me for this is my wife, Mrs. DC.
Hey there.
Hey, it's September 2022.
In our hearts, in our bodies, in our minds.
And in time, sometimes.
Yes. What's it called? Retcon?
Yes.
We've
Exactly.
retconned it.
Yeah, exactly. As you all know, this is the April to May to 500. And we want to make sure it's a true 500. And so, out from the depths come the quote-unquote lost episodes. This one might be one of the more infamous of which.
Yeah.
It's the lost episode 334. 334 or 344? Let's have a little look here. 334. Episode about the elongated man that you and I did, in fact, record.
We did.
The recording did save.
Apparently.
But it was in the studio transition time, and it was with a bad mic and a bad setup, and it was unsalvageable as an audio file.
We did our best.
Yeah, and I immediately was angry, and we did not re-record it.
No, we
for
didn't.
2.5 years.
Yeah, and I remember being angry too.
Well, yeah.
Because I think it was during a very busy time.
You sure?
And I spent all that time researching and being a great guest.
Yeah.
Just
I'm sure you spent a lot of time researching.
Just to have it dashed.
The elongated man.
Listen. You know what you were getting into. Anyway.
Fair.
Yeah. The stretchy guy.
One of the stretchy folk of DC. There are a few. He's certainly one of them.
I always confuse him with Plastic Man.
And rightfully so. Lots of confusion. They're similar, but not the same powers. Ralph Dibny did make it to live action, though.
Yes.
He was on the Flash TV show.
That is
for
correct.
a couple of seasons. Or actually, really just one season, I think.
Yeah, and then I know we're going to get there eventually, but remind me, is this the one whose wife died?
It sure is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It sure is.
Sue Dibny?
Oh my goodness.
Look at me remembering after 2.5 years.
We need to pause the recording.
You're welcome. Shattering.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why you keep me.
That's great. Yeah, well, do you just want to get into it?
We might as well. We're here.
Sure. In the year of our Lord 2022. Things are looking up. What could possibly go wrong in the next 2.5 years?
Honestly, I can't imagine. But fun fact, the doctor is redoing the studio, and the room in which we are in is so much more echoey than usual.
It's entirely possible that it'll pick up on the mics.
So if you hear us, we're not baseball announcers. We're not lost in a cave.
Yeah. But the room is empty because we're about to paint it. And then there's going to be new shelves going in here.
And it's going to
be turned into like a proper studio /
archive
/
toy display / fun place for you and Richard.
Like cool boys hangout. No girls allowed.
Except when I come in and vacuum.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, let's get into it.
Okay,
in our echoey cave.
Let's get into it. Go to our first question. It's on Facebook.
Go into the face and the book. Go into the Facebook.
Beautiful. Very well done.
I think that's the only one I remember.
Well, we'll see. This question comes from Braden Ketty, who asks, obviously, due to their similarities in powers, Elongated Man and Plastic Man get mistaken for each other. Can you tell us the main differences between the two heroes?
Plastic Man is cooler in comic form. I know that from my DC Heroes Lego game.
I love, by the way, I just want to say, I love that you launched into answering the question.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It's only been 8 years.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
This podcast is older than our kid.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's how I tell them apart.
Okay, well, I guess let's put it this way. You know that it's Ralph Dibny. Mm-hmm. You know about Sue. What do you know about his powers? Let's maybe start there, how his powers work.
Okay, this is how I think it works, and you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
I think of him as more of like a Reed Richards / Stretchable Stretch Armstrong,
This is so hot.
where... Wait, which part? The 80s toy reference?
Just
or
the everything coming out of your mouth.
the things
ladies.
The things we're going to do to your mouth.
Oh, Seymour, the things we're going to do to your mouth.
Oh, I think of it more that way, where it's just where I when I picture elongated man, I picture long arms and legs.
Right.
Whereas when I see Plastic Man, I think of when I play in the video game and he
Right.
can turn into a plane and he can turn into a boat. And
Yeah,
he
yeah,
can,
yeah.
You know, I think of him as more transfiguration
Yeah.
rather than stretchy.
I think that's a really good way to put it. That's basically 100% accurate. So, Plastic Man, Eel O'Brien, was like a crook, like a criminal who gets doused in a chemical and it polymerizes his body. His body becomes plastic. And he can not only stretch and whatever, he could do exactly the thing that you're describing. He can actually change his shape. Like, if Plastic Man becomes a donut, it might be that a hole opens up in his center.
Yeah.
And he becomes like a ring shape.
Yeah.
Elongated Man, Ralph Dibny, gets his powers from a gingold extract that he drinks that I think was later retconned that he was also metahuman and the extract affected him only.
Like sort of like personified, like boosted what he already had.
Exactly.
Okay.
It just allows him to stretch. He can't add like holes to his body that
Or-
would kill him. So he still has to be human shaped. He can just stretch like Stretch Armstrong, like exactly how you said.
Okay.
And he's not made of plastic. He just becomes stretchy. He has stretchy flesh. Whereas Plastic Man like is literal plastic.
Okay. And then my question is Reed Richards elongated man style or Plastic Man style? Because I can't remember.
Reed Richards, I think, is mostly elongated man style.
Okay.
I don't know if he can do the thing where he becomes a shape that like would require him to like break his body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes me kind of think of Elastigirl.
I think this is my only real reference point is the video game. He does turn into stuff, but I don't know if it works the same as Plastic Man. But Reed Richards is fleshy.
Yes.
He's still a dude. It's
Yes.
just cosmic energies give him stretch powers.
Like Elastigirl. Like Elastigirl can become like a parachute.
Exactly.
When she has Jack.
Yes.
But she doesn't like,
Yeah.
she can maneuver but not morph.
And Elasti-Woman in DC, I think, also can't. I don't think she can make like weird shapes like Plastic Man can. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So those are the primary differences in their powers. Obviously, as characters, they're totally different. Ralph's a detective. Eel O'Brien was a crook. Ralph is like, fun but relatively like serious, straight-laced.
I picture him
Eel
as,
O'Brien is like a goofster, always messing up. Isn't this guy ever going to get it together?
it makes like in the video game that I play, Plastic Man looks kind of like a 60s greaser with like the little curly Q, and he's wearing like shades.
He's always got the big shades. He's got the deep V like spandex.
And it's like very primary color-esque.
Yeah, it's red and yellow and black is his outfit.
And then when I think of elongated man, I think of, like a muted blue and a like light brown hair comb over with a turtleneck.
I mean, you've got the right vibe. He's a ginge with a kind of longish nose. His nose twitches when he smells a mystery. And his original costume was purple and white. And then also had a more like red and yellow costume. And he's also had like an orange and purple costume.
Okay. I don't think I've ever seen him in character form. Right. But in my head, I just imagine like a really lame guy with a turtleneck being like, oh, I gotta.
Fun fact: elongated man. Sorry, not elastic man. Elongated man shows up in just a couple of episodes of the Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
Yes.
In that cartoon, they ascribe him some of the characteristics of Plastic Man, where he's not being taken seriously and stuff like that.
Okay.
He's especially featured in a Booster Gold episode where the two of them are like, nobody believes we can do, like...
Yeah, because... Anyway.
But he's voiced by Jeremy Piven.
Of course he is.
I don't think that's an of course.
Of course
That's
he
absolutely not an of course.
Well, no, it's one of the...
I did not say that because I thought that was an of course.
Well, no, when you have a character that's like, we're more than what we seem, like, it doesn't shock me.
You think of Jeremy Piven?
No, it doesn't shock me that they would be like, this guy needs a voice that can command. And then we find out.
I don't know what you're saying right now. Jeremy Piven has a voice that can command? Are we talking about Jeremy Piven?
Ari Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hush. I don't need... No.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
I didn't expect you to be such a secret Jeremy Piven stan.
Ari Gold, baby.
Yeah, I guess.
Am I less hot now?
I mean... Next question.
All right.
We're going over to Twitter. That's how old this is.
Twitter.
And question comes from Alex Jaffe, who asks, outraged as the reaction was at the time, did Identity Crisis ultimately get more people to care about Ralph and Sue?
Is that where Sue dies hard?
It's where Sue dies bad, yeah.
Okay.
What do you know about the death of Sue Dibney? Just from having circled this podcast for so long.
I bet you 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I bet you I knew.
You Googled it or something?
Yeah, 2.5 years ago. Am I wrong in assuming that she was sexually assaulted?
Yes, but that's not how she died.
Okay.
In the story, it's revealed that happened years earlier.
Oh.
So this story is a double whammy for Sue because not only does she get murdered, but we also find out a long time ago that Dr. Light sexually assaulted her. So those are both in that story, but not contemporary with each other.
I see. Yeah, no, I don't remember how she dies.
So they find her body like charred and burned in Elongated Man's apartment. And the reveal of the story is that, and it's all tied to the past and all these kind of things. All the heroes think it's Dr. Light because of this past thing.
Yes.
Where Dr. Light had assaulted her. And you also learn in this that the heroes elected to magically lobotomize Dr. Light.
Yeah.
So the
yes.
story thing in here is that Satana kind of fucks with his personality with magic.
Yeah.
And that's why Dr. Light was like one time a Justice League villain and then got his ass wiped by the Teen Titans for that's like the comics way of explaining why the Teen Titans were cleaning his clock all the time, is that they fucked with him.
Yeah, because he's the one in the Teen Titans Go with the light bulb.
100%.
Okay.
So that's kind of like a story thing that was sort of happening there. So obviously the heroes that were conspirators in that all think that Dr. Light must be the one that did it.
Yes.
And they all go after him. And as this is happening, all this stuff from the past is dredged up. And,
Yes.
they're all kind of tearing themselves apart about the lie that they've been keeping and all this kind of stuff. But the ultimate reveal is that Jean Loring, the ex-wife of the Atom, Ray Palmer,
Okay.
lawyer,
Yes.
friend of the Justice League, whatever,
Yes.
basically goes crazy, steals one of Ray's bio belts,
Okay.
shrinks down, and she thinks she's just going to give her a seizure, but accidentally gives Sue an aneurysm, like shrinks into her brain, gives her an aneurysm. She thinks what she's going to do is there'll be a scare. Everyone will go running to their partners and Ray will come back to her because he'll care about her. But she fucks up and kills Sue and then panics and then torches her. But she already had the flamethrower with her. And the whole thing kind of culminates with Jean with this like creepy, crazy smile going like, and you came back to me, Ray, kind of thing, which is like extremely out of character.
That is.
And that's
something.
And that's how she died. Jean Loring, like one of her friends, killed her, basically.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane.
And it's a really upsetting story,
I don't remember any of that.
Well, I mean, you didn't read it.
Well, anyway, yeah.
but yeah, it's a very upsetting story that was trying to, like, there are a lot of interesting ideas in the story, but the interesting parts aren't the parts about hurting Sue.
Yeah.
So it did cause a lot of outrage. So the other part of this question, though, is did it get more people to care about Ralph and Sue? It's like, it may have, in that maybe people weren't talking about them for a while, and then they all of a sudden were. But I bet almost all of those people would rather have kind of forgotten them and had them still be around.
Yes, that's fair.
Than to have all that happen to Sue for no reason, and that nothing to do with Sue's character or her journey. Had nothing to do with her. It barely had anything to do with Jean. Like, it's such a textbook example of like throwing away female characters.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just an upsetting story, basically.
Oh.
It does have interesting ideas. The idea of some Justice League members like tampering and like, what's the line? What's the moral line? What happens when you keep a secret? Batman finds them while they're doing it, and they do it to him. And then Batman finds out, and you know how Batman is, and he gets paranoid that he can't trust any of his senses, and he creates the Brother Eye satellite to monitor every superhero.
I see. Is this before? Okay, don't get mad at me for this.
I would never.
The cartoon where he has backup plans to take people out, is that a comic?
It's called Tower of Babel.
Is that before or after?
It's not really connected to this, but it's exactly that idea.
Okay.
Where his paranoia leads to something bad.
Okay.
It's not exactly that, but it's totally in that vein.
Okay.
But yeah, so there you go. Next question.
There we go.
From Chris Chan, who asks, how would you and your wives fare were you a superhero couple like Ralph and Sue Dibney?
How would we fare, babe?
Well, I mean, this is the ultimate question is like, how would it work if we worked together? We have the answer to that because we did work together for like 3 years.
We've worked together.
I mean, specifically
times.
like our 9-to-5 jobs.
Yeah.
We worked together for like 3 years.
I think that we would be fine because a lot of the time I'm very supportive role in that respect. And I could be a good supporting role for you.
Right.
And vice versa. When I need you, you've got my back. So I think
we're pretty good partners.
I think we're pretty good partners in that sense. Like us, like most other people.
Yeah.
There are times where we want to kick each other's butt.
I never think that way. I would never.
But I think that it would be hard for me if you were out there. Like, it's one thing us working in an office atmosphere. It's another thing if either one of us was putting our lives on the line, because we're very good at giving each other shit for doing too much. Or
so then here's the question. What's
choices.
more stressful? Me, in this scenario, me going out there and you staying back and waiting to see if danger got me or not, or being out there and witnessing the danger in the moment? Like, what would be worse?
Probably waiting.
You think so?
Probably waiting.
It wouldn't be like you going like, like when we drive and you put your arm across me, like you're going to stop me going through the windshield.
Hey. I have your back.
I appreciate the gesture, but the physics does not agree.
Listen, would you rather me just be like, F it, you're on your own?
I mean, it'd save you a broken arm.
That's true, but my heart would break.
Oh. Nice.
You're welcome. But yeah, no, I think we'd be fine. I think we are fine when we do that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Ralph and Sue, they worked together. She'd help him with his mysteries and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm sitting here next to you helping you with your podcast.
For a while, she was the administrator for the Justice League. She worked for the Justice League.
Yeah.
She's been involved after she died, and then after Ralph died, they were ghost detectives for a bit together.
Ghost sleuths.
No, I mean, I said the right word.
Supernatural sleuths.
Yeah, there you go. That's nice.
Dear Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and then Sam and Dean come in and kill them.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man, that's beautiful. But yeah, there you go. I think we would fare reasonably well.
Okay. Next question from Leonel Lorca, who writes, would it make more sense for Elongated Man to be the world's greatest detective? So that title is more or less held by Batman.
Yeah.
World's greatest detective.
Yes.
But Batman, here's my counterpoint. Not necessarily about Elongated Man, but Batman has lots of skills.
Yes.
He's like a great martial artist. He's a brilliant scientist. He's a criminologist. He's a businessman. He's a blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
He's a mechanic. He does so many things.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a really good detective. Ralph's thing is he's a detective. He can stretch, but it's almost like Black Canary with her canary cry. It's like that's almost secondary. Like Black Canary's real superpower is being like a martial arts badass that rides a motorcycle.
Yes.
And then sometimes she's like, I guess I'll do the scream. You know, like to me, Ralph is in a similar boat where it's like the stretchy thing is actually like 10% of what he does. The rest of it's detectiving.
I would say, in my opinion, I think that Batman is the world's greatest detective for a couple of reasons. One, I think that bit of loss that he has and that hyper awareness because of it.
Sure.
He's really good with his back against the wall. He's really good at seeing things from all angles.
Sure.
There's a little bit more urgency in him. And also his background, for example, martial arts and his money and his travel and he knows mechanics and he knows this.
Right.
I think it helps him pick things apart.
Right.
A lot more effectively. I don't have a lot of knowledge on Elongated Man, but I feel that wide range of skills and talents only make you a better detective.
There's a it's kind of like a one-off story. It might have been it was either in the 1000th issue of Detective Comics or it was in the like anniversary Detective Comics 27 issue or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's
a short story where Batman is like, he's had this like ongoing case and he's like trying to crack the clues for years and he finally gets there. And at the end of it is he's granted admission to the Guild of Detectives. And the people waiting for him there include Detective Chimp, Martian Manhunter, Elongated Man, Hawkman, like a bunch of other people are already there.
Yeah.
And I feel like Richard and I might have talked about it at the time. And I think my perspective on the time is the thing that makes Batman the world's greatest detective is that he will not stop.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Terminator, right?
Yeah.
Like he solves all his cases because he won't stop.
He's a grinder.
Totally.
Yeah.
But is that being the greatest detective or is that being the greatest at not giving up?
Well,
You know,
I guess
Detective Chimp or Elongated Man, I think probably have fewer bits of knowledge of all those other disciplines that Batman has, like chemistry and whatever, botany or whatever. But they still manage to solve the crimes. Does that mean they're better detectives?
Maybe not. Maybe it's one of those things where maybe it's like a Jedi thing where there's already these great people there. And then this chosen one.
Batman is Anakin?
Yeah, Batman's Anakin because he's all dark and moody and shit and will kill people if he needs to.
So they let him into the detective guild, but they don't grant him the rank of world's greatest detective?
Well, he had to earn it. But I guess it's one of those things.
It's a Jedi Master joke.
I guess, hey, give me credit for knowing about the fucking... Shut up. I think that longevity and that tenacity make him the world's greatest because it's sort of like Sherlock Holmes. He always gets his guy.
Right.
You know, like, sure, those other guys don't have the breadth of knowledge.
Right.
But what are their records?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I suppose. Fair enough.
We don't know this.
How would you put Elongated Man or Batman up against some of those other detectives? Martian Manhunter, famously a detective, debuts in Detective Comics. His alter ego is Detective John Jones.
Yes.
Detective Chimp. Obviously, that's his deal. His whole thing is that he's a chimp who dresses like Sherlock Holmes.
Well, to go back to what you were saying, the two of them have a metahuman emphasis, right?
Not on detection specifically.
Well, but they have powers that enhance them.
Detective Chimp is super intelligent for a chimp, and he can speak to any animal in its own language.
Yeah.
So that's one thing.
And then
Martian Manhunter, objectively, is like...
he reads people's
He can read people's minds.
You
And
know?
he can turn invisible and shit, like, which makes being a detective a lot easier. Yeah.
Right? Like, and you know, maybe it's one of those things where there's layers to this, or there's levels
Sure.
to detectiveness. I don't know. But also, do those two operate on Earth specifically, or have they been great other places? You know, it's world's greatest on Earth detective.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part on Earth, I'd say. But
you know what I mean?
Fair
I don't
enough.
know. I'm just playing devil's advocate there.
Fair enough. Next question comes from the Cray Ghost, who asks, it really sucks that Identity Crisis is still likely the biggest story Ralph and Sue have been a part of, or the preamble to it, which is 52. Other way around. Identity Crisis comes before 52. What is a comic you would recommend someone read if they wanted to see Ralph and Sue at their best, alive and well?
You know I'm useless for this question, so go for it.
I don't think I can name a specific one, but like if you want, you got to go back to like the Justice League of America, like late Silver Age era, like in the 70s.
When did Elongated Man make his first appearance?
It's in an issue of The Flash with Barry. It's in the 60s. Precisely when? 64, 65, something like that.
And again, you might
I'd say like in the 70s, into the 70s, early 70s,
Because-
Justice League of America, you could probably pick up a decent amount of Elongated Man
with
and
Sue.
Sue.
Okay.
Elongated Man was on a team, was it Justice League Europe? He was on that one. I can't remember how much Sue is in that.
Is Sue part of that Flash show?
She was, but it's all... She was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. Who else? Or what else? It's... Yeah. I'm having a hard time thinking of a very specific one. It's funny, too, because they were around as supporting characters. It doesn't mean you're getting, like, Ralph and Sue stories all the time.
Yeah.
But they were around a lot and people liked them and liked the idea that they were this couple that was in love, that she knew who he was and that she worked with the Justice League and was the sort of civilian that was in there. Like
her T4 came from the Justice League.
100%, you know, and all that kind of stuff is, I think people liked that. And it was a lot more of those kind of stories than necessarily like, we're really following the arc of Ralph and Sue.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was pretty jarring for her to be killed the way she was. Obviously, them getting back together as ghost detectives is kind of nice.
Yes.
But there hasn't really been a ton of Ralph and Sue since. The New 52, when everything got rebooted, Sue was being held captive and Ralph went undercover in the Secret Six to find her. But again, not a lot of Ralph and Sue stuff. So there's I would actually say there's not a ton to point to, if I'm being really, really honest. It's just a thing that people liked about them. Because like Elongated Man had one 4-issue miniseries, but he mostly did not have a book of his own.
Do you own that?
No, I might have one issue of it. But he did not have a book of his own. Whereas the Atom had his own book. Like the Atom and Jean had like a real arc and ups and downs between that and in Justice League and in other comics. They would have these ups and downs. The Atom was around a lot more than Elongated Man was.
So basically this person's very right in stating that it sucks that this was like the pinnacle for them.
It certainly in terms of spotlight.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to outdo that moment.
Yes.
You know? All right. So that's it for the questions on Twitter. Now we're heading over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them.
Very nice.
You're welcome.
First question comes from Liam K. Willis. What you talking about? And he asks, can he stretch every part of his body? Like every?
He's talking about his penis.
He can stretch his penis.
But
Yeah, he can.
the
Question is, does he need to? That's the real question.
Well, like, here's the thing.
This is the sleuth thing I want to do.
But here's the thing: is it like just saggy skin and there's like nothing in there?
No.
You know,
What stretching power have you ever seen like that?
like after you lose a lot of weight and there's just
But that's
that
the
excess
opposite.
skin.
That's when you stop stretching. That's not when you stretch.
I don't know. That's all I imagine. It's
No,
just like
this isn't Marvel. He just gets the power. There's no downside.
I don't know.
He doesn't have to like watch his uncle die in the street to get the power.
Also, I'm curious, like, why you want to know about a stretch dick?
I think we all know why we want to know about a stretch dick. I think the bigger question is, can an elongated man like girth it or only length it? And Plastic Man
Can do both.
and he could probably like texture it.
Weird.
He'd probably make it
Ribbed
100%.
for her pleasure, of course.
Or his. I don't know how plastic works. What am I, a plastic scientist?
Oh, if only we'd have a bigger house.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God.
There you go.
Yeah, he could definitely. But because he's elongated, man, he would have to take the Gingold extract, which is essentially, if he's using it for that, he's basically taking Viagra.
Do you think Gingold is blue? What color is it in the...
Right, yeah.
What color is it in the
I
comics?
think it's like kind of golden, amber, kind of orangey. I think.
That's a missed opportunity. But when that would have,
I don't know that
when that would have come out, it probably wouldn't have been a Viagra time.
No, it definitely wouldn't. And also, I don't know that it's a missed opportunity that they were like, well, the Gingold is obviously Viagra. Can we make it blue? That we'll never get that past the censors.
That's what it would have been.
Is that what people sounded like in the 60s?
Yes, that's it. That is, you are on point, dude. Nice job.
Next question comes from Robbie's Just This Guy, who asks, so was the elongated man created before or after Mr. Fantastic?
Can I guess?
You can, because I will also.
I'm going to say after.
It might be after. The one thing I kind of remember, so Plastic Man is definitely first. Plastic Man was a character in comics published by Quality Comics.
Okay.
He first appears in Police Comics #1, I think.
Okay. I don't have my phone, otherwise I would fact check.
No, it's totally fine. It's better this way.
Just us
Wild speculation.
just stabbing into the air.
The thing that so that was Quality Comics. Quality Comics is also where the characters from the Freedom Fighters come from. Uncle Sam, Human Bomb, Doll Man, Black Condor, those kind of characters.
Doll Man.
He can shrink to the doll size. Phantom Lady.
Is he smooth too, like Ken?
Great question.
Like just so smooth and androgynous?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Quality Comics gets bought by DC eventually.
Okay.
As I recall, they forgot they owned Plastic Man when they created Elongated Man. There was like something where it's like, we should have so I do think Mr. Fantastic comes first, because then DC's like, we should have a stretchy guy. And they make Elongated Man, and then someone goes, don't we own Quality Comics? And they go like, fuck, Plastic Man's better. And they kind of...
Do you think Plastic Man's better?
Plastic Man, I think, is more interesting, to be honest.
Yeah.
I like that Ralph exists, and I love that he shows up, but I also think there's a reason he never really had his own book, that he barely even showed up supporting wise in other books.
He's the turtleneck of comic books.
I don't know about that, but I Plastic Man is just more interesting.
Okay.
A crook turned hero who's sort of a screw up, who can turn into silly things, who's like kind of a goofball.
Yeah.
Like, he's more interesting.
Yeah.
Lends himself to more types of stories. So Plastic Man definitely comes first. Then I think it's Mr. Fantastic. And then I think it's Elongated Man. I might be misremembering that story, but I seem to remember reading something like that DC was like, fuck, we should have a stretchy guy. And then they were like, fuck, we do. And they kind of had forgotten.
And he's actually cooler than
and so now they've got 2 of those. And then, of course, they also have Elasto-Woman from the Doom Patrol.
Oh, yes.
Who also has shape-changey powers.
That's a show I still need to watch.
Doom Patrol?
Yeah.
It's really good. It's great. It's got
Brendan Fraser.
It's got Matt Bomber.
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser. Timothy Dalton.
Timothy Dalton makes everything better.
April Bowlby. I can't remember. Diane Guerrero.
Can I ask a funny question?
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton, does he ever play Doc Magnus?
No, he plays Niles Calder, the chief.
Okay, but
who's like the sort of quote Professor X of the Doom Patrol.
But in my head, he should play Doc Magnus at some point. He's too old now, but like
a younger Timothy Dalton maybe could have, but he's actually perfect as the chief. He's
okay.
a really good Niles Calder.
Anyway, that's my side hustle. That's my side tangent right there. But yeah.
So
Reed Richards probably came first.
Of him and
Elongated.
I think so.
Okay.
And it is that kind of mid 60s. I don't know when the Fantastic Four debuted, but like early 60s, and Elongated Man's around there too. 64 or something like that.
Well, there you go. And
I refuse to look that up.
And you and I refuse to check our facts.
Speculating wildly. Let's leave Instagram and head on over to Reddit.
Where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
Very nice. Very good.
Nice.
Dr. DC resident Neo asks, is Ralph considered a better detective than Batman? Also, does Sue contribute to his mystery detective cases like Watson and Sherlock?
Okay, we've already talked about this.
Yeah.
Even though he's in the thing first, he's in the Court of Owls for detectives first. Batman's probably better, right?
I think my personal opinion is that Ralph is probably a better detective in the sense of the Sherlockian thing of like, or the whodunit kind of thing of like, I've put the story together.
He's the Benoit Blanc of the Justice League.
Batman only does that because of like an overwhelming tide of evidence and scientific inquiry.
Yes.
You know, like I think Ralph is more, to your point, like a Benoit Blanc, like a Hercule Poirot. Like, I think he puts it together maybe based more on like how people are.
Yes.
You know, I think he's probably a better detective that way.
Okay.
Batman is like, yeah, I solved it. Of course you solved it. You had like satellite scans and heat signatures and you know.
Or John Johns.
You pulled everyone's bank records in all of Gotham to see when a debit card was used or something. Like, of course you solved it.
Yeah, or like John Johns, you solved it by looking in his mind.
Whereas Ralph is like, oh, there's a hair over here. Wait a minute. This window couldn't possibly open this way. You know, like he's doing more of the old whodunit kind of style detecting, I think. That's my perspective. Now, in the universe, I feel like that might also hold up. I think people know Ralph will solve a mystery. You know, Batman is also like, they know he could figure shit out, but Batman's also Batman.
Yes.
I think Ralph is like he's a known quantity as a great detective. And it's not necessarily that they go like, I'd much rather have Ralph than Batman, but I do think they just know, like, it's not really a step down to go to Ralph.
Yeah.
He's different. He's got different methods than Bruce, but he'll solve it. He'll figure it out.
And in terms of Watsonisms, I know you said that she was like an administrator and stuff like that, Sue, but was she like, oh, I'm an expert? Like Watson's like, I'm a doctor.
Sue was helpful, but like, the only thing that held Watson back from being like Sherlock is that Sherlock is obviously like a sort of once in a generation, and his family are kind of like freaks.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Watson also, like, he learns the technique from Holmes and is a pretty good detective in his own right. I think Sue is helpful.
Yes.
And by being around him also learns the technique in that. But like, it's not like she was coming in and she's like, you know, Ralph has this bit covered, but I'm
Yes.
whatever, surveillance whiz, or whatever the thing is. She wasn't like bringing like a skill or like Watson does bring the medical thing to Sherlock. You know, like that's like a thing.
Well, and the army strategic background.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, and kind of some of the combat stuff. I know Sherlock like has, he's tougher in the books than he's made out in a lot of things, but Watson is bringing a lot of very specific things. I'm not sure that's the same with Sue, but she is undeniably helpful. She does help Ralph solve cases. She does work cases with him.
But is she...
But it's not in the way where it's like, Sue, I need your lock picking, or like whatever the... Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like because she has a host of very specific things. It's just that
he's not dependent on her. He's dependent on her for love, affection, and clean laundry, but like...
But also she's just helpful.
Yeah.
She's a generalist, I guess is the way I would put it. She's just helpful. She's good at being there and seeing things and
doing whatever.
Helping, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Okay, next question. We're going to leave Reddit. We're going to go straight to the doc scored.
I don't know anything about this.
You have to pick a song and then clunkily insert the words docs or scored or doc scored into the song. 3, 2, 1.
Clowns to the left of me, doc scored to the right. Here I am, doc scoring in the middle with you.
It's fucked up that you did that so quickly.
Well, because I've been listening to the Reservoir Dogs soundtrack a lot.
Specifically the soundtrack to Reservoir Dogs? Yes. Really?
Really.
Why?
It came up on my movie like shuffle. Right. And then I was like, Reservoir Dogs, that's a really good soundtrack. And so I've been playing it, and then I got stuck in the middle with you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then there you go. That was very good.
You're welcome.
Next question comes from Trey Shove, who asks, are Ralph and Sue still ghost detectives, or has that been reset? Also, what do you think about the end of 52 for Ralph?
Now, wait, here's a question. Are we treating this like, are they still ghosts in 2022? Or are we treating this like, are they still ghosts now?
The answer will be the same.
They're not.
They're not.
Okay.
The new 52 reset in 2011 de-ghosted them.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
So since 2011, they have not been ghosts.
They've been resting peacefully.
The difference now in the comics is because we've unraveled all of time and like all people are kind of aware of their different versions.
Yeah.
They probably remember having been ghosts.
Yes. Okay.
But essentially they're not.
Okay.
That's the real quick one there. Now, she died, and then the thing that he's talking about is a book called 52, which came out after Infinite Crisis. So, Identity Crisis, Sue dies, Batman finds out that people manipulated him, he goes crazy.
Yes.
That leads into Infinite Crisis, which is not solely about Batman and that satellite of his, but they are implicated. But it's also where Ted Kord Blue Beetle gets shot in the head. Bunch of shit happens.
Yes.
And then at the end of Infinite Crisis, the Trinity go away for a year.
And that's Superman, Batman,
Batman, and Wonder Woman go away for a year. And then this book called 52 came out that was supposed to fill in the gaps of this like year where the Trinity are gone. And that book changed a bit, but Ralph has this kind of sad story during this book where this cult of resurrection tries to promise him that they can bring back Sue.
Okay.
The cult includes Cassie Sandsmark, Wonder Girl, who wants to resurrect Connor Kent, Superboy, who was killed during Infinite Crisis.
Okay.
There's a cult. There's all sorts of shit. The heroes are like, Ralph, are you okay, bud? And he's like, I'm fucking fine. And Ralph kind of starts going a little crazy. And he's on this hunt to maybe pull it off. And he ends up implicated in sort of the world of magic. And ultimately, he's being manipulated by Felix Faust, who promises that he could bring back Sue if he helps him, blah, blah, blah.
I was going to say
Ralph outsmarts him, traps him in the Tower of Fate, all this kind of stuff. But Ralph ends up dying.
Oh, okay.
That's I'm broad strokesing it, but that's
Yeah.
More or less what happens to him in 52.
Okay.
Him dying there allows him to become a ghost detective with Sue.
I see.
So he can finally be with her.
So in a way, he gets her back.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
I think his story in 52 is like deeply sad, but what's nice about by the end of it is that he's kind of owning who he is again. At the beginning, he's very lost. He's easily manipulated by this cult. He's clearly very
Vulnerable.
desperate, vulnerable. And by the end, he's Ralph again. You know, he's tricked like one of the great sorcerers, Felix Faust. He's solved a mystery. He's done a blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, he's outmaneuvered all of these like powerful bad forces. That's cool to see. And then his ultimate prize for that too is that he gets to be with his wife again.
Yeah.
So I dig that as an end for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I love that.
Last question.
Okay.
Comes from Damiana Dimmock, who asks, does a death or sexual assault or attack of any kind need to occur to have the same impact? So if we're talking about the shock factor, the impact of a story like Identity Crisis, are those things necessary? So let's blow it out broadly. It doesn't have to be about comics. Certainly doesn't have to be specifically about that one. Let's talk about story. Are things like that necessary?
I don't. Okay. As a woman, this is a touchy thing for me. I don't ever think it's necessary. If you're a good writer and you set the scene beautifully, a death can be as poignant as a gruesome death, including one of those things.
Right. Gotcha.
However, it adds a layer. It adds an impact. It adds shock value. Like we talk about this all the time. We talk about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. We talk about Watchmen. We talk about so like the entirety of Game of Thrones. Like we talk about
really implicating Alan Moore.
He implicated him fucking.
Yeah, he did. He did.
He did it in damn self.
He sure did.
But I guess it doesn't need to be there if the writing and the story is good enough to set up that impact. However, it will always be more of a gut punch. It will always be more of a shock value with those in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think
in my opinion,
my perspective, and this is also how I feel about like intimacy on stage and things like that. Not just violent stuff, but like even like nice stuff.
Yeah.
It's almost always the least important part of the thing you're trying to build.
Yes.
Like having two people actually touch lips on stage, for example, is so much less important than the way they say everything to each other that would lead to them touching lips on stage.
Yes.
To the point where if you're pulling off the rest of it, you actually don't need them to touch lips.
Yes.
Because what they've done is already more than that.
Yeah.
You know, like the tension, the relationship, the things like that. And to me, I feel the same way about the depiction of some of these things.
Yes.
There's so much you can imply. Even if let's just say it's a given, it's part of the story. There's so much you can imply without showing.
Yes.
Do I need to see the anguished face, Dr. Light, like cackling in the back? Do I need to see that?
Yeah.
Or is there a different way of like conveying that? Yeah. Even if we say that piece of the story remains in place, do I have to see it that way?
No.
Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Almost never, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, I actually think it's a lack of creativity.
It is.
Especially if we look at something like Game of Thrones. I think it actually betrays a lack of creativity or a lack of trust in your ability to convey emotion to an audience. If you have to go to, well, I guess we should just show it.
Yeah.
There are so many other ways to imply the sinister thing is coming.
Yeah.
Or it's about to happen, or we cut away and you know it happened, or we see someone later and you know,
well, for example,
what the fuck happened to Theon? And you like see, you know, like it doesn't even have to be about sexual violence, but it could be like there are more clever, more powerful ways of depicting a thing. And I think it's a rare circumstance where the actual showing of it is necessary or does a better job than everything else you could do.
Well, like one example I always think of is Streetcar Named Desire.
Sure, yeah.
It happens.
Yep.
You know what happens.
Yep.
But you see the before, just about up to, and then the chaos after.
Yeah.
And like, you know it's there. You know what's happened.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it doesn't need it.
Now, that's just about depiction.
Yeah.
The other piece is, like, it's very often used as just like, and this is going to be the motivating thing. Yeah. But I mean, like we were saying, my problem with Identity Crisis is that it has nothing to do with Sue.
No.
Sue is a true prop in that story. Because it's all about, what does it do to Elongated Man? What does it do to the Justice League? What does it bring up for other people?
Yes.
Sue is nothing in that story.
She's basically a vehicle.
If it's part of her arc, I mean, let's leave aside how is this part of her arc. But if it's a story about her and this thing happens to her, and then she deals with it, or she has to process it, or she has to move past it, or she has to get revenge, or like whatever. If it's a good story or a bad story, but it's about her, that's a lot different.
Yes.
Already, even if you depict it the same way, that's a lot different than we just watch something bad happen to her as a setup for our Elongated Man story.
Yeah.
You know, that's the fridging kind of thing,
well,
right?
And to be fair, it all boils back to her dying. So like that piece,
right?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
they
have it in there because they're trying to say this is not a defense of it, but they have it in there because they're trying to say, what is a crime so heinous that would push the Justice League to such a desperate thing they themselves would have to cover up. I think is the setup. You know, if you're Brad Meltzer and you're making the book, I think that's what you're thinking.
Yes.
It can't just be, he robbed another bank. Should we fuck with his brain? Like,
yes.
We're trying to think of something horrible.
Yes.
And so that's, I think, the logic, heavy quotes, of it. But again, in the context of this story, now we're just getting it thrown away in a flashback. It's not like it was always part of her story.
Yeah.
And we're revisiting it or adding new detail to it. We're just throwing it away in the past.
Yeah.
Just to bring it, to make this thing. It does feel kind of flippant.
It's it feels like an afterthought at the time. Yeah. So there you go. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. That's it. Those are all the questions.
Look at us go.
We're doing great.
Talking about Elongated Man.
For a short gated time.
And you know what? That's okay because I have a feeling that there was a lot in that episode in 2022 that was probably unnecessary that came out of both of our mouths.
Name one time on the podcast something unnecessary has happened.
I can name many.
Name one.
I can name many, and it's me.
Name one.
Not even getting into you and your other spouse.
We don't have to talk about that.
We don't.
It is the April to May to 500. There's still one more outstanding lost episode to come out. And then we can put it off no longer. It'll be our 500th episode. So stay tuned for that. If you've got questions that you want to submit for the 500, it could be about anything. It could be about us, the podcast, about DC, whatever you like. Send those. That's totally fine. You can send those to us. Find us on social media at Dr. DC Podcast, wherever you find us. And hey, you're listening for free, you fucking freeloaders. If you really cared, you would be on the Patreon. Patreon.com/editpoint. That's now our combined home for all things bonus. So whether you like us here, whether you like us on Ghost Facers, whether you watched the very few videos we put out as Scaredy Guys, any of those, however you came to us, go to patreon.com/editpoint. There's 3 tiers. They all help support us. There's bonus episodes. You wanted more. Those come out at the highest tier. There are bonus rewatch podcasts. Me and Mrs. DC did a whole series together, rewatching the films, 007 films.
Good old James Bond.
It's called Bonding Time. That's up there. But also up there, Toretto Talks, the Fast and Furious rewatch that I did with my sister. Cerebros, the Fox X-Men rewatch I did with Chick and Maddie, Matthew Poulter. And DC Review, the DCEU rewatch that I did with my dad, Dr. DC Sr. And this week, the first episode drops of the new series on screen, rewatching the Star Trek film franchise with the one and only Dave Rossi, the man, the legend, which I imagine is a t-shirt that William Shatner owns.
He does.
The man, the legend.
You know it. You know that's a t-shirt he owns.
So yeah, check that out. It all helps to support us. Patreon.com/editpoint. And you heard me talk about it before, but if you like what you're hearing and you're giving us money and you want to hear something else for free, then you can go check out our other podcast. That's Ghost Facers, a Supernatural rewatch. Richard and I are going through every single episode of the CW Supernatural. We talk about real world monster lore, behind the scenes stuff about the show. We are into season 11 of 15 right now.
And every now and then I show up.
Every now and then
I show up.
You show up
because Richard's been
bewildered and go, why would Dean do this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I don't annoy you, listen to that.
Yeah.
It's
great. And that's it. We'll see you next week. Adios.
See you later.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.